So, very good morning, and let's start today with our next chapter in this base SAS, which is all about reading raw data files. Okay, so till last topic, we had learned how one can actually access non-SAS files like Excel into SAS so that one can work on those files to extract the necessary information as per your business requirement and generate your business report for those for your business solutions, whatever it is required as per your data is asking. Okay. Now moving ahead, you may have a scenario where you may require to extract the information coming from flat files or unstructured files. And that's what we say it as raw data files. So this is the topic where how one can extract this information from non-SAS file, which are mostly the flat files, and we can read it into SAS data files so that once a data set of SAS is created, then we can use it for our further business requirement, correct? So to understand what flat files is, I'll just show you how the flat files looks. Okay, there's one. Yeah. So if you observe this data, this is the data which is into like a notepad and we term it as a flat file. Okay. So if you'll see this data do not have the proper structure reading the values where it does not define what this value for which column it is standing for, what is it actually, what is this value for, and you could find that there are certain values within this data which are actually separated by some delimiter, or we call it as some special sign like comma. So this is termed as delimiter. Okay, so either it could be some special sign or character, where whatever. So it is a data file which is unstructured data file, and this is termed as your raw files. So moving ahead, this is what we'll be looking in this chapter, how to read raw files. All good. So objective here is will be identifying the types of raw file and the input style method, and will define the terms standard and non-standard data. So this objective is with respect to introduction to reading a raw data files. Then post that we'll be looking ahead how one can read standard delimited data. Then we'll see what is an in-formatting process to read or delimited data, and we'll see how to handle missing data values. Okay. So this is what the scenario they're trying to give us, and they're trying to tell us that we know Orange Star Sports and Outdoors is an organization which is dealing into the sale of sports goods for their employees, their suppliers, and various other modes of data information. And they have the data coming from various countries. Okay, so we have Australian information as well as United States information. Now, what are they trying to tell in this scenario is what we need to do is that the information about Orange Star sales employees is coming from Australia and United States, okay, is in the raw files. The programmers need to be able to identify the layout and type of information in the raw file and try to read that raw file to create a SAS data set. Okay, so let's understand what a raw data file is. So most of the time, a raw data file is always termed as a flat file. They are text files that contain one record per line. So moving ahead, in case now when the data files which I have already shared you and which we have uploaded into our studio as well. So this is the information for your PG1. So we know that this are the data files with an extension of .ss7b dat is actually nothing but your SAS data files, correct? So if I'll keep a cursor, it gives you the property information. So if I scroll at bottom, you know that this .ss terms as SAS program files. And of course, we do have some non-SAS files as well, which is Excel files, comma separated files, and of course some flat files which can be open into notepad, and they are also termed as DAT files. So if I try to open one of the file, suppose sales one, so this is what you see, the information. Now the information, you find that these are columns, but you are not able to have the term given, what is this, what this value stands for, what is this value standing for. Hence, this is unstructured data, which is also termed as a text file or .dat files. So by looking into this, we can term that this could be employee ID, this should be the first name, this is the last name, this is the job title, this is their salaries, and this is the country from which this employee belongs to. Correct? So this could be the data values. Accordingly, we are going to give instructions to SAS so that these values are converted into SAS data set. Okay, so this is what we are going to learn here. So they are telling they are most of the time text files that contain one record per line. So this whole row is termed as record when it is into a raw file. So this information is for a single entity, hence it is one record per line. Okay, so the record typically contains multiple fields. Flat files do not have internal metadata. So what does this word means, internal metadata? It is like, what is this value termed for, or for what column? So this is the information of its internal metadata, that what is this column, what is its name, its type, its length, if it is format, okay, or it is in format, all that. So that is metadata, okay. So it's telling the same. The flat file do not have its internal metadata. That is the description of the structure of file within it, what values, what columns. That is the attributes of the columns. Okay. Then it's trying to tell that external documentation known as the record layout should exist. So whenever as a data analyst you get the information like this, at the same time you will also receive the information what this file describes for, and that is what external documentation of the record layout is always provided for us being an analyst. A record layout describes the fields and locations within each record. So there would be a file which describes what this value or field would be. So if you check these fields carefully, you'll find it is starting in one column and it's ending in one column. Same goes for this all column, for this column, for your sales manager and all job titles. So this type of raw file is, we can term it as it is into fixed width column format. Okay. So they are into fixed columns. So we are going to count like from starting from one column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till 6 places. We will give the instruction to SAS to read this, telling that starting from first column to the sixth column, SAS should read this value as employee ID. Then seventh place, we can tell it's a blank. Starting from eighth column till the maximum length of whatever the value is, take the value to read as a column name, named as first name, and so on. Okay, so that's what they're telling. This layout description of the field and locations within each record should be provided. Okay, now if you look at this data, okay, now this is the same information, but we were looking the information in fixed width. Now the information for us, if I'll see this data, which is sales. Okay, it's again in standard columns. Yeah. Now it is the same information, but now this information is separated by some special sign. So this from here to here is one word. From here to here, it's one word, and this is another word. Okay, now this field is not in fixed columns, but they are separated by comma. Okay. So that's what the slide is telling. You may receive sometimes a raw file where the values are separated by a delimiter, or it could be also arranged in fixed columns. So the earlier example which we had seen about this information, so this is the fixed column width data, whereas this information is comma separated or delimited data value. Okay. So when it is a fixed width column, as I said, you will be reading the information where we'll be counting the columns values and then we'll be giving the instruction. So depending on the raw file structure, the instructions what we are going to provide is going to vary. All good? Are you getting it? What we are learning actually? Any doubts till now?
Like I'm getting it, but is it not like how if this is okay, we are assuming that it must be the employee ID, or means how we'll identify that okay this information is so
See, this is what it's written. A record layout describes the
describes the
field
field.
and location within each record, and an external documentation known as
Record layout.
record layout should exist. So it will be
Okay.
provided to us.
Okay.
Okay, so a separate documentation will be given to us that what the file would be. Within that file, what would be the values and how we have to read the values. So this information would be given to us. So it's just as a data analyst, we need to understand what is the input source. And that's what we are getting introduced to a raw files. What type of raw files we would get. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just type of raw files which we'll be reading. How to read, that's what we are learning. But this is what it's telling. These are the two types of raw files where we'll be having to get to perform to read it into SAS file or convert it into a structured SAS file. Sometimes we may receive the file where the values are separated by delimiter. Sometimes we may receive the file where the values are in fixed columns. Okay, so you may get this information. That's what they're trying to tell. So fields and raw files, so it's telling in order for SAS to read this types of raw files, you must specify the following information. So being a data analyst, when of course, as I say you every time, being a data analyst, it's our responsibility to understand the input source. Okay, so without understanding your input source, your input data, we cannot give the instruction. Okay, so that's what they're telling here. So in order for SAS to read the raw data file, you must specify the following information. So what information as a data analyst you will be giving to SAS is the location of the data value in the record, the name of the SAS variable in which to store the data, and the type of variable. So these three instructions we have to give in our SAS within our data step. So if you remember, initially when you people got introduced to SAS Studio, very first chapter in your demonstration of chapter 2, you had handled this data step to understand what data step is. Then you had seen what procprint is doing and procmince is coming. So if you have understood, initially when I had described this data step, so what this data step is telling SAS that you are trying to create a data set, reading from a raw file which is saved at a specific location. So because it's into SAS environment now, the location for this file is going to vary. So you know we are going to give the location for new cells EMPS, which is within your SAS server. So this is your dedicated server provided. So this is what we are going to give this information. Correct? And what is this .csv? It's telling this file is comma separated value. So if you'll see this file externally in a path, we do have new cells EMPS, which is a comma separated. And we know every time CSV most of the time opens into Excel. So if I try to open it into Notepad, the values will be appearing. It is separated by comma. So we can tell this may be the last name, this may be the first name, this is the job title, and this is the salary. So between the delimiters, you have the values. So between this comma to this comma, you have this value. So between this comma to this comma, this is the value. So this is what, as a data analyst, we are understanding a raw file. And this structure information will be provided to us. So being a data analyst, what we have to do is 3 steps. Location for your data value, where it is loaded or where it is been located. So that's what in the studio, when I open this data step, in file statement provides the location where you have a raw file situated and which raw file we are reading. Okay. Then second step, what we have to do is name of the SAS variable in which you have to store the data. And how do we give the instructions? With input statement, we tell about the information, how the record has to be read, which is the name of the columns, its type, name of the column, its type, name of the column, its type, name of the column. And that's what the type of the variable comes along with this in input statement. All good now? Understood? Yes, no?
Yes, so we are creating the CSV
Yes.
files.
So, no, we are not creating, we are reading it. We are creating SAS data set now. Our aim is we are working into SAS environment. So our data information should be into SAS. So we cannot ask SAS to create CSV because SAS is not a CSV environment. It is the SAS environment. So from this non-SAS file, we are creating a SAS file. And therefore, we are giving this instruction. All good now? Understood?
Yes, we are creating a from a raw data, we are creating a file as per how,
Absolutely. So we are converting a non-SAS file into a SAS file.
SAS file.
Correct. So now when I execute this data step, you will find a data set is created. So when I see my log as well, SAS, when we had submitted this data step, SAS has given you a note telling that when an in-file statement was encountered, SAS went to this path, to this file, and it start reading this file, and it's telling, see the term, 71 records. Because it was a raw file, it's using the term as records, and it's telling a data set is created with 71 observations. Look at the term here, observations. And because we had given in input statement the instruction for 4 columns, it's telling here 4 variables has been created. And third note is telling data set has been, this step has been used, and hence a data set is created. All good? Understood? So with ProcPrint, you can process your data step, the created data set, and you see the report. But if you observe the data, you'll find the values for job title is truncated. It's not coming with all the characters. Agreed?
Yes.
Correct. So why this could be the output? Why it's not reading all the characters? Any idea? Yes.
Because it has the text as well as the numeric, as the Roman.
No, that is taken care as a character only, Roman. It's because by default in PDV, when this column has to be created, default length SAS text is as 8 bytes. Okay, so it reads the characters till 8 length. That's why these values get truncated. So in case
8 is the standard length.
Yeah, it's the 8 bytes. Okay.
And 32 characters was
that is for the column names.
Column names. Okay.
Okay. So we hence provide the length statement for each column. You tell its type and length, column name, type and length, column name, type and length. And hence, when you submit this, you'll find your data is no more truncated, and hence you'll get the values coming with all the codes or all the letters. Getting it now? How SAS converts a raw file into a SAS dataset. All good? Then once we have this data set available, you can generate the means report on the salary. Hence, you'll find the mean salary for each employee, so not overall for the organization. So for this department of sales, the total mean salary the organization is giving is so much. So this is the average salary for sales department, and the minimum salary within the sales department and the maximum salary given into the sales department. And it's a standard deviation. Total number of observations are in the department of sales. Total employees are 71. Understood now? So the information provided to us is in the raw file. We are first converting into SAS. Once it is into SAS, you get your business report. Getting it now?
Yes.
Vaishnavi?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see the same thing. So how do we decide how the instructions has to provided for your raw file to read? So we saw the raw file. Depending on the structure of raw file, your input instructions will be changing. So in our case, because our raw file was comma separated, in our in file is just the statement where we give the path, and we also tell the raw file is actually a comma separated file. Hence, we provide this option called as delimiter, telling this raw file is comma separated. In case when I do not give this and I submit this data step, okay, I'm not going to get any errors here, but if you'll see the output, it is not reading it appropriately. See, it's coming an alarm. So why the alarm is there? So if you'll check your log, there is not a syntax error, but SAS is giving you some notes telling invalid data for salary in line number 2, starting from column 1 to 23. So now what it does is it tries to read the values with columns. So it's treat comma as a part of your data value. So it's not treating comma as a delimiter where it should read between 2 commas, 1 value. So what it is, by default, the length, whatever, it will count. Now we have provided this length. So you're telling from dollar, because it's a character, it will give the type of the column first name as character. 12 places it will read the first name. So it's reading 12 places like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So till here it's reading first name. So if you see the result, see first how it is coming. And it's also trying to tell in the log that it is line number 2. Okay. And it's telling this is the contents of PDV. This is the raw file which is reading, and it's telling it is invalid data which SAS is not understanding, and hence you'll find this contents of PDV also telling there are 2 temporary variables in our log, which is underscore error underscore and underscore n underscore. So what is underscore error underscore? It's a temporary variable telling error has occurred. So it's a Boolean expression, 0 or 1. 0 indicates no error, 1 indicates error has occurred. So it's not a count of errors. See, everywhere the value is 1. It's just that true error has occurred, hence the value is 1. Whereas this is your data step iteration number. So it is in the first iteration, the error has occurred. In the second iteration, the error has occurred. In the third iteration, error has occurred. And what is the error? It's the same note error telling invalid data for salary. That means the instructions provided for salary here telling it's because there is no dollar sign. It indicates that means it's numeric, but when it's reading the data, it starts reading somewhere from here and it's find its data is invalid. Here, the type here you are telling is numeric, but here it's maybe trying to read it from here. So it's trying to tell it's not a valid instructions. Hence, it's error. And this is termed as data error. Okay. So this is termed as data error. Please note down, syntax error is a difference type of error, so which works on syntax only. But data error here is the instructions provided in data step is not matching as per your raw file values. So that time SAS never stops processing the data. It still keeps on processing and provides notes into log. Hence, it is termed as data error. This is quite different than syntax error. So, you know, when syntax error occurs, SAS provides the error message into red, into log, and it stopped processing your data step there itself. But when it's a data error, it will just keep on providing the note into log, but it will keep processing your data step and give you the result. So be very technically thorough between the difference of data error and syntax error, because this question is tend to come into your interviews as well as into your certifications. Okay, got the difference between syntax and data error?
But can you once again just
Yeah, see now, because this is a instructions which we have provided in data step is not matching on your raw file, hence SAS provides note, but it's still processing, right? Did it stop anywhere and you get the result also, correct? But did it stop your data step? Did it give your error mark and it stopped processing? Yes, did it
yes,
stop?
stop.
It did not stop, it's still reading all the rows.
Yeah.
Correct. Hence, this is the difference. Syntax error में क्या होता है, वो रुक जाता है, वो आगे जाता ही नहीं, वो डेटा सेट भी नहीं क्रिएट करता है. I hope you remember.
Yes, remember.
Correct. So that is the difference between syntax error and data error. तो data error में वो हमेशा नोट देता रहता है कि आपके इंस्ट्रक्शंस जो आपने दिया है वो इंस्ट्रक्शंस और डेटा वैल्यूज मैच नहीं हो रहे. That's what it's trying to tell here. But it still reads and processes your data, but the output result is incorrect. Correct. So it did not stop here. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Getting it now?
Yes.
Vaishnavi, Sharda.
Yeah, means in syntax it is like error in writing code only. But
Correct.
here it is not error in writing code. It is the difference in the instructions how we are writing it.
Absolutely true. Absolutely. Okay. Now this is one thing. So why did we get that error? Because this is what it's trying to tell. There are different techniques where the input style for reading raw data file in SAS always varies. So input style means this input statement. Okay. So depending on the raw file, your input statement instructions will keep on varying. So how we as a data analyst will give the instructions. So if your raw data file has fixed columns with standard data, then you will use the input method called as column input. Okay, just understand. I'll describe this also in upcoming slides. Then if your raw file is having the information for standard and non-standard data in fixed columns, it is formatted input. And when you have a standard and non-standard data separated by a delimiter, we use list input method. So in our example, our raw file is comma separated. Hence, we use the list input method. And therefore, in file statement, we provide the data for your raw file is separated by a delimiter. Getting it? Now, what does a standard and non-standard data means? So this data is in fixed column. So if you observe this data carefully, okay, with characters, by default, SAS will be able to read a character data without any instructions. Thus, it's termed as standard data. Okay. Now here the numbers for salary are simple numbers, but if you see another raw file where you'll find the numbers here, not this again. Look at these numbers. So is this standard numbers? Standard numeric data? So what does the standard numeric data means? Simple numbers without any special
It is not
signs.
special.
Correct.
Special character are there. Yeah.
Correct. So, but this numbers has special characters. Why? Because we know as a human being that this could be a code for a phone number, which is put into parentheses, and this is separated by hyphen. So this whole thing as a number is a numeric value, but it has special signs. So this type of data is termed as non-standard numeric data. All good?
Okay, non-standard numeric data.
Correct. It's a numeric data, but it's not a standard form because it has special signs. समझ में आया?
Yes.
Vaishnavi, Sharda.
Yeah.
Huh. So that's what it's trying to tell on slides, that depending on the data values of your raw structure, we are going to give the input method. So if it is a standard data in fixed column, we'll use column input. If we have both mixed standard and non-standard in fixed columns, we'll give formatted input. This too will be seeing it into Proc2, this style. And in our current topic, we'll be seeing list input, where you have the files with both standard and non-standard values, but the data is separated by delimiter. So if you see our current raw file, which is this, they are values where it is standard and non-standard, and the values are separated by delimiter. Getting it? Hence, the input method which we have used here is termed as list input. All good? Read it carefully. Only the last list input, what it's trying to tell.
Yes.
Vaishnavi, Sharda.
Yeah.
Sharda?
Just got it.
Okay. So this is what this slide is trying to tell you. Now see, same thing. This is standard numeric data, which will include decimals with the values with your negative sign, exponential signs. All this, where SAS can read it without any special instructions, is termed as standard numeric data. Whereas it's trying to tell that character data is always standard. तो उसमें कोई special instructions देने नहीं पड़ते. Character values read करेगा वो. It's a standard character. And what is a non-standard numeric data? All the numbers, but it has some special signs. Of course, that also would come into non-standard data, because though these are numbers, but it is alphanumeric. So alphanumeric, SAS will not be able to read it until we tell what is this data. All good? Yes, no.
Yes. Means
Look at
even
the-
if alphabets are there in the between, it will be non-standard.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, right.
Correct? Okay. So this is simple poll, and you all are freshers. I know you are not working currently on any raw files. So it's just a generalized question. Now, after getting introduced to what raw files are, let's see how to read standard delimited data. Okay. So objective here is, we'll be using list input to create a SAS data set from a delimited raw file. We'll examine how SAS creates a data set while reading a raw data file And understanding it, will be looking into compilation and execution phase. We'll see how explicitly we can define the length. And of course, we'll examine the behavior when data error is encountered. So now the scenario here is we have to read a sales.csv file for sales department. The file information of employees is provided into a non-SAS file, which is comma separated file. And this comma separated file has to be converted into SAS data file. And how do we convert it? By using a data step. So when we have to use a data step, we being a data analyst, we have to accordingly provide the instructions so that it will convert this raw file into a SAS data set. Okay. Whenever we have to create a data set, we know we are going to use a data step, right? And what is the delimited file or what is the raw file which we are using? The name is sales.csv. Now, what does .csv stands for? Comma separated values. So this was our comma separated values, which we tried to open it, not this one. Comma separated values. It got opened for us into a notepad. Why notepad? Because if you remember, if I use this cells, it's a comma separated value. It by default opens in Excel. So if I double click it, you know, it opens into Excel. This is what it shows. Of course, it does not have column description, but it is how it's showing you. So if you'll see this raw file, it is a mixture of standard and non-standard values. So which are the standard data values till which column, like A to I, which values are standard and which values are non-standard? Come on, tell me.
Till AU, values are standard.
Okay. Very correct. So it's from the column A to G. It is all standard values.
Standard.
And from H to I,
H2 non-standard.
non-standards. Correct? So these are the dates. In Excel, the dates come like this. But if I try to open the same into Notepad and show you how it looks, of course, this is how actually the raw file is, which is a raw file which is separated with delimiter, and you'll find this is not at all in fixed columns. So you have to give instructions that what is this value, what is this value, what is this value to be read, what is this value to be read. So it's the value instructions between the comma that we are giving SAS to convert this non-standard data into a structured and standard data. Why? Because this is not at all a structured form. Hence, it is unstructured raw file. All good?
Yes.
Correct?
Structured, unstructured.
Unstructured है, उसको structure ही नहीं है. Therefore, we cannot define what these columns are. Correct?
SAS, when we mean to say structure means there should be tables or Excel means proper format should be there. Correct?
Absolutely. Structured
Yeah, so
means
any data represented like this on a notepad, we will consider it as a non-structured only.
absolutely. Unstructured, yes. इसको स्ट्रक्चर ही नहीं है. हम डिफाइन ही नहीं कर सकते कि ये वैल्यू कौन सी है, किस कॉलम के लिए है, ये वैल्यू क्या रिप्रेजेंट कर रही है. राइट?
Yes.
Okay. So this is from a sales.csv. We have to create a unstructured non-file, or that is a comma separated raw file, which is non-standard and standard data containing, has to be converted into a proper structured data, which is into a SAS format by using a data step. So Hence, looking into this, we are going to use a list input. List input means, if you remember this data step, we have given an input statement which is describing how SAS has to read the columns, correct? Hence, this input style is termed as list input. Why list input? Because it's telling the SAS wherever the values are separated by a delimiter or a blank. So blank is a default delimiter. Apart from blank, if it has any special sign separating the values, is termed as delimiter. And this raw file consists both standard and non-standard data. And of course, the fields must be read sequentially from left to right. We will be using list input method. Now, if you'll see from left to right, this is the instruction provided as employee ID, first name, last name, gender, salary, job title, country, correct? From left to right, the record has to be read. That's what we'll give this instruction in your input statement. So answer this poll. Which field in this file can be read as a standard numeric values?
Employee ID and salary.
Salary.
Absolutely correct. So employee ID, see, we are not going to do any calculations in upcoming future with respect to employee ID column. So we can also read it as character maybe, but most important for us is your numeric variable, which is your salary. So your salary can be read as a numeric column. Okay. So that is a standard numeric values. Correct? So that's what it's telling. Very good. So this is what it is. So moving ahead, this is a demo for chapter 8, D01. I'll be showing you this code. So in our chapter 8, D01. Okay. So of course, I hope you remember what is this. So every time the path is going to repeat. So instead of going back to the file and copying the path, just use this macro variable where you will be checking for sales.csv. Okay, so it's character wise arranged, alphabetically wise. So you have this, it's sales.csv. So what we will do is look into its properties. Okay, copy all things. Here, till here the things are common. Correct? Just change this backward slash to forward slash. Fine. So check in file the path, that means this path. And within that path, you have sales.csv. In file statement, you give the instructions that your data is separated by a delimiter, which is comma. And with input, you give the instructions telling the first field has to be read as employee ID, followed with first name, which is going to be a $sign, last name, which is again $sign indicates its character. Now I did not provide a $sign to employee ID, so it will take it default as numeric. Same for salary, no $sign, it will take numeric. Same goes for all other with dollar. That means it indicates these are your character columns. Now when I execute my data step along with proc print, I find my data is read correctly. But look at these values. It's not reading all your job title. Why? Because during your PDV creation, as per the instructions of input, by default for each column, the default length provided would be 8 bytes. Hence, the SAS is reading the values till 8 characters. So it got truncated. All good? समझ में आया?
Yes, so if we want the full this thing, we have to add a length.
Let statement. Absolutely correct. Okay. So it's reading between the two delimiters, the value is for first name. By default, it will read the records from left to right till this delimiter. It's treating the value here is for employee ID. Then between this delimiter to this delimiter, this value is for first name. Same goes between the two delimiters, the value for last name, gender, your numeric value is salary, and this is your job title and country. So we gave instructions only till this values. Okay, so if you'll see this raw file, information, see employee ID, first name, last name, gender, salary, job title, country. Correct? So we read only the standard numeric data.
Yes.
Correct? So if we check a log for our information, so SAS is telling when this data step was submitted, this in file, with this in file statement, SAS located the file. Correct? Now look at here, we had provided the macro naming ampersand path. I hope you remember what we had done this last time. So this is a macro statement which we have created. %let path equal to, we gave that every time giving the detail path, this detail path, we are representing it symbolically. So we are not every time going to give the huge path. So we create a symbol or a macro for it with the name of path. And we gave that this should always represent with this word. And how does it represent into your coding? With ampersand sign.
And
Okay. So this is termed as macro variable. And this is the statement to create a macro variable. And this is macro language. So we'll see it in more detail in advanced SAS, but this is just a glimpse for you to reduce your coding time. All good? So this ampersand in the memory, SAS looked into that what it is, it's actually the path which we have provided. So it's telling in file statement, it unwinded or it just looked into what ampersand path represents. So it gives you this path, and in this path, this file. So this is what that file is. So it's reading the file which is provided in this path. Okay, and it's telling this is the file. And of course, because we have the read and write access, it's telling it's providing the access and therefore you can read it. Then the second note, it's telling this raw file consists 165 records. See the term record. Why? Because it's still a raw file. It also gives the instruction that what is the maximum minimum record length. And the third note is telling a SAS data set is created with the name of work.subset, which has 165 observations and 7 variables. So now the records are converted to observations, and where this 7 variables has come from with your input instructions. So what infile is doing? Infile is just giving the location from where you have to read the file, and input is giving the instructions how to read the raw file. And we are telling employee ID will be the first column. No $sign indicates it's numeric. Next value should be read as first name, which is character, and so on. And that's what with input, it has now able to read the observations and it has created the columns. All good. And then the fourth note, data statement used. Hence a data set is created. And because we have used proc print immediately after data step, it's giving you the list output for your proc print. All good? Understood? Yes, no.
we will do this activity, no?
Yeah. But at least you have followed what we have learned.
Yeah, once we will do means we'll understand.
Sure. That's what the same thing on the slide is. Okay. So what is in file statement doing? It gives the path where you have the raw file provided. And of course, within the in file only, you have to give the instructions that this raw file is separated by this delimiter with DLM option. And this delimiter has to be provided in quotes. All good? So the same thing they have explained here. So whenever we provide a macro variable and you put quotation, see to it, you always write double quotes. Now, why double quotes? I'll explain you when we learn macros. Okay. But whenever you represent a macro variable, always put into double quotes. Then only it will be able to resolve this macro. Okay. Fine. So the highlighted part, which is just a standard data, that's what we have given the instructions in input to read. So it's telling default length for all variables at 8 bytes. And of course, the character columns has to be defined with $sign. Therefore, this is the syntax for input. Variable, in case it's character assigned dollar, space, give second variable name and its type. That's what we have given. Space, after giving one column instruction, second column instruction, space, third column instruction, space. So this dollar is for this column, this dollar is for this column, which indicates it's a character type of column. And thus, this is what we saw into the log as well, the same instructions. And with proc print, we saw the values. And we saw the values are truncated. What you do is open this demo D01. And as we have created a macro, you people also create a macro path equal to and give this path till prog1 as your macro variable value and change it here. So look into my code and accordingly do this work. But remember, this path for you is going to be different. This is my user path. For you, you will have your individual user path. Okay? So just look into it and work accordingly.
It will be the prog1 path only, no?
For you within your this files and folder path. Understood? See, for
Sales
you,
dot CSV, yeah.
correct. So for you, right click, check
Properties.
So whatever the path comes for you, that is your path. And see to it when you are pasting it into your path equal to remove.csv, because this is going to be a common path where you will be having all your files. And your file name individually will be separate whenever you read a new file. All good?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We have to remove the sales.csv, na?
See, just this part. Observe this carefully.
Yeah. Doing it. I'm getting as physical file does not exist.
Where did you write? Look at it carefully. Here, what you have given.
Yeah.
इन फाइल स्टेटमेंट को कॉपी करना पड़ेगा CSV से, sales.csv से.
ये क्या दिया है आपने, यहाँ क्या दिया है, वो चेक कर लो प्रॉपर. If it's not working, just share your screen with me. Vaishnavi?
Yeah.
डबल कोट्स में दिया है, ठीक है. आपने पहले इन फाइल स्टेटमेंट परसेंट लेस स्टेटमेंट सबमिट किया था.
This one.
पहले वो अंडू सिलेक्टेड प्रॉपर्ली. नहीं, इन जस्ट परसेंट लेट. एग्जीक्यूट दिस. Okay. अभी ये log में what it is just telling you that you had submitted percent late. But if you want to check ये path का value है ना, home slash whatever the user ID and prop one is, okay? तो ये कैसे check करेंगे कि path का value यही है? Come into your code. Below percent let type percent put. स्पेस नहीं होना चाहिए. It's a macro statement. It's a keyword. Percent put space ampersand equal to, that is your and sign, path, PATH, which you have written, the macro variable name, semicolon. Check your percent put to execute this. तो ये क्या दे रहा है, समझ में आ रहा है अभी ये क्या दे रहा है? वी आर चेकिंग द वैल्यू फॉर योर पाथ विच वी हैड क्रिएटेड विद परसेंट लेट. So put is a statement which always shows the information into log, and we are checking the path की value is appropriate, which is slash home slash your user ID slash proc1. Okay, so it's successfully created. All good now? Understood what person put is doing?
Yeah.
Okay, now come to log code. Now submit your data step. Only data step. अभी ये बाकी सब हमने किया है.
Only this much.
Yeah. Execute. Okay, so what it is, it's telling, no, one sec. See, physical file में आपके slash का problem है.
Yes.
So come back to your code. See the slash. Change it. क्योंकि ये server का slash है. Okay, now you execute your data step. Check your log. Come to your log. Now come to this. Look at the first note. So what it's telling, first note after 70.
The file home, yeah.
See what it has done, ampersand part, it resolved to the path which you have created with %let और फिर prog1 के folder में जाके उसने sales.ch पे read किया है. Got it? How infile statement has resolved.
Yeah.
Understood? Now check your output data set and check the values for job title. Is it reading all the values?
This one is
Count these characters, yeah. Check how many characters, including space.
8.
So how
Eight.
you'll check, come to your left-hand side. See, left-hand side, you have column description. Click salary, job title. No, not there. No, click means on the name. You have unselected it. Click that. Correct. Fine. So at the bottom, see, properties length is
8.
correct. So
Yes.
this is non-programmatically you're checking the attributes. So how will see programmatically, come to your code. After data step, write proc contents. After data step, write proc contents.
Procura.
आपका proc देखो क्या लिखा है आपने. नहीं, वो contents was ठीक, इसलिए वो blue ने आ रहा है. Correct. Now type contents. Data equal to, what is the data set we had created? Look into your data step, data statement,
Work dot.
subset.
Yes.
Correct. So this is the output data set which we had created. Yeah, and end this step with run. Run this proc contents. So programmatically, you are checking the same thing which we had seen earlier, non-programming. So scroll down. देखो alphabetically variables के नाम और उसके type और उसका length. Default हर एक column को length आया है 8 bytes.
8.
Understood?
Yes.
Nagendra, Sharda.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, if you want to see its data values, come to your code and submit your proc print. You'll get the data part of it. Proc contents में आप descriptor part देख रहे हो, proc print में आप data values देख रहे हो. You'll find the data is truncated. Got it? Now, why it's not showing observations column into this? Observation का column क्यों नहीं दिख रहा है? अपने कोड ठीक से देखा है कोड विंडो में. What does the instructions proc print is providing? Proc print. Observation column क्यों नहीं दिखाई दे रहा? Because of the no obvious option which is written in the proc print statement. The observation column got suppressed. Got it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Vaishnavi, remove these notes, then
No.
check.
Just remove that no obs and check. You will find 165 observation as the row numbers coming into your result window. Now scroll this down. Now scroll down till the last observation to see 165. So 165 records is converted into 165 observations. Got it?
Yes.
अभी हमको ये columns का length हमको adjust करना है. So before infile statement or before input, your length statement should always be provided before your columns have been defined. So इसमें length लिखो and provide the now numeric column already employee ID है, तो सिर्फ write it as it is or you'll check your I'll explain. Now check this, okay? Stop sharing your screen. Okay, now see some characters values are truncated. So how to adjust it? But before adjusting it, we'll understand how it's working into backend. So length में कैसे define करने का वो समझा दूंगी, but we'll take a break. Okay. So we'll move in by, it's almost 11:40, by 11:50. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So we saw before going for a break that how SAS converts a raw file into SAS data. But being a data analyst, it's quite important, or it's important for us to understand how SAS performs this reading of a raw file to convert it into SAS data set. So for that, it's important to understand the processing that occurs when data step reads a raw data file. Okay. So you all, I hope you remember when we submit a data step, what are the two phases which SAS uses in the backend? If you remember the phases of data step.
Compilation and execution.
Absolutely correct. You have compilation phase and execution phase. So this phase is always processed whenever we submit a code. Okay, and we had seen it was a compilation phase where SAS actually reads the raw file, reads the code and it checks for syntax error, correct? It is the compilation phase. Now let's see when it's a raw file to be read, how the compilation phase works. So during compilation, SAS does the following. First thing is it will scan the step for syntax error. Then it will translate your statements into machine language. It creates an input buffer to hold one record at a time from the raw data file. And because it's a raw file, it's a record. When it has to read into SAS environment, SAS creates a space in the memory to hold the records. Hence, that space is termed as input buffer. And it will also have a logical ruler where it will be able to count the columns. So this is how the input buffer is created. All good? So input buffer is an area in the memory where SAS holds the records. And from this records, it will convert it into SAS observations in PDV. So a PDV, that is program data vector, is created as per the instructions of input statement. And then it creates the descriptor portion of your output data set. All good? Followed? Just read this slide once.
Yes.
Sharda and Vaishnavi.
Followed.
Followed?
Yeah.
Okay. So if this is understood, now let's see how it works. Okay. Now when you submit your data step, the first phase is compilation. So when, of course, we know very well, SAS reads the code from top to bottom in a sequence, correct? So when it encounters the first statement of data step, it is an indication, a sign with this name that it's going to create a data set which has to be referred or saved into this library, and this will be the name of your data set. Then next is followed with in-file statement. So with the in-file statement, the path is located, okay? But because in file, we provide the information that we are reading a raw file, SAS will immediately create an input buffer. Okay, so an input buffer is created. Then when it hits the input statement, as per the instructions in input for your column, its type and its length, the PDV is defined. Now understand, here the PDV is created as per the instructions of input statement because the in file is indicating it's a non-SAS file which we are creating. When we were using a set statement to read an existing data set as an input source, the PDV was defined as per the defined columns from existing data set. समझ में आ रहा है? तो वहां पे कॉलम का नाम, टाइप और लेंथ ऑलरेडी डिफाइंड था जब हम SAS डेटा से डेटा रीड कर रहे थे, बट यहाँ पे वो पीडीवी बनाएगा as per the instructions of input because यहाँ पे instructions हम लोग दे रहे हैं to read from a non-SAS file. Getting it now?
Yes, यहाँ पे create हो रहा है.
Absolutely, यहाँ पे create हो रहा है क्योंकि यहाँ पे existing data set हम लोग नहीं read कर रहे हैं. Correct? Okay. So as per your input instructions, the name, its type, length. No indication of dollar, it's telling SAS it's numeric. Default length is 8 bytes. When it comes to the next word, it's telling its first name, its type is dollar, so it is taking as character. By default, again 8 bytes, it's a length which it will take. So with list input, the default length for character variable is 8 bytes. And then moving ahead for the next columns, save. So this is the area where the raw data will be held, raw data record. So it will read every single record line. It will hold here, and as per your input, it will be converting into SAS data set into PDV. All good? And then with run, a descriptor portion is created. Got it? So what is the descriptor portion? Just the description of your table, that is the name of the data set and number of columns and its type and its length. Got it now? Yes.
Okay.
Okay. इतना समझ में आया? Vaishnavi?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's understand the description. But
The
before
employee ID, the numeric, no, N8 you have given. If it is less than 8 digits,
by default, it is always 8 bytes. Even if it is less than 8 digits, please remember, we have learned this earlier also. 8 bytes यानी 8 digits नहीं होता है. 8 bytes में वो nearly 16 or 17 digits save करता है. Because in SAS, it saves the numbers in floating point digits. Okay. Whereas for character, one character is equivalent to 1 byte. So even if you have numbers less than 8 digits, still it will adjust or it will be able to save within 8 bytes. Bytes and digits is a different thing. All good? Yes, Sharda?
Yes.
yes, yes.
All right. Moving ahead, which statement is true? Answer A, B, or C, or D. Read it carefully.
Option A.
Okay.
No, B. I think B is correct.
Okay.
I
Vaishnavi.
also think B1 is the correct one.
Okay. So which statement is true? It's A. It's telling when is input buffer created? Only when you're reading from a raw file. हमने पहले भी देखा in chapter 6 that whenever we are reading a SAS data set, PDV is created, not input buffer. Input buffer कब बनता है? जब हम raw data से data read करते हैं. Got it? Yes, no.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is a flowchart which explains the same phases, but we'll see how execution works. Okay. Now, when execution is been starting or when SAS enters the execution phase after creating your descriptive portion, that is your compilation phase, whenever it has to read the rows, we know initially your PDV has to get initialized to missing. अगर वो blank रहेगा तो ये observations add होगी. Hence, your PDV gets initialized to missing. Because these are numeric columns, it represents with period. All are characters, it represents with blank. Now, see the sequence, how it works. As we know, SAS reads the statements in sequence from top to bottom and the statements from left to right. So, when it hits the data statement, your PDV gets initialized to missing so that it's ready to take in the observations. So when it hits in file, understand, when it hits in file, it will locate your raw data file. Okay. It will not locate or it will not load the record into input buffer. In file में क्या है? सिर्फ path दिया है. So it will go and locate their raw file. And with this instruction, SAS understands it is a delimited separated data. Now, understand when I'm moving ahead, when it's clicking or when it hits input, that time only your raw data record from your raw file from this path is located in input buffer. अब समझ में आया why input buffer is there? Because a non-SAS record has to be converted into SAS records or SAS observations. Hence, to hold this record, we need an area in the memory, and that area is termed as input buffer. The word buffer is what? It is something which is balancing your equations, or in chemistry, we know that buffer is it balances your chemical, whatever we are using it, correct? Same thing, it's a buffer which is converting from a record to a SAS data set observations. Understood? Yes.
Can we say that the first step or the first action will be input buffer?
Of course, we saw
Yeah,
it,
and
na?
yes, yeah.
Because buffer is to hold the records. Why
Yeah, it is
record?
like means raw data. It is putting it. It is trying to put it in some kind of format, a
Absolutely.
characteristic.
So format हम लोग convert हो रहा है पीडीबी में. यहाँ पे सिर्फ वो raw data
Arrange हो रहा
memory
है.
में
You can say.
read कर रहा है या
Read.
उसको hold कर रहा है.
Okay.
Okay. Then now look into your input statement carefully. Now input is describing what is the column and its name and its type and its length. So what is the immediate instructions? The column description. So because it's a numeric, it's already defined that it's a numeric, its type is N, and its length is 8 bytes during compilation. So the record is read from left to right. So because it's a delimited file, it is going to read from your left side onwards till this delimiter. This value is read for your PDV as column name, input column name called employee ID. So from left to right till the comma comes is the information to be converting from a record to an observation for a column name employee ID. Understood now? So the value is converted from text to a floating point numeric value copied to PDV. So from a record, it is converting to a SAS data observation. All good
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what is the next instruction post in employee ID? First name. Now, first name, already its type is defined, okay, in during compilation. So first name here, the instruction is to read the record. So between a delimiter till this delimiter, this value for this first record is to be read for your first name column. Hence, SAS will skip the delimiter and scans to the next delimiter, that is from comma to comma. The between value is read to first name. All good? So the text value is copied to PDV without conversion. Now, why without conversion? Because it's a standard character value. It will read it as it is. All good? Okay. Now, next, all these values between each delimiter to delimiter, it's treated as last name. So it's taken here. Between a delimiter to a delimiter, it's the sequence read should be a column gender. So it puts according the value into the column gender of PDV and so on. Understood? Now, because it's 8 bytes, it reads the values only till 8 characters. Understood now?
That's a default.
Yes. All good?
All good, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Then now understand. Next statement in data step comes run. So when run comes, you know, run always plays a role of implicit output and implicit return. Implicit output from where? From PDV. This observation has to be put into your data portion of your data set. Correct? So hence implicit output. Implicit return means this data step again has to be processed for upcoming records. That is the next data cycle or next data iteration. So that is the role of run. So with run, this row is written to your new data set work.subset as a data portion. All good? So this is your data set. First row been converted from a record to an observation. All right. Then again in the next iteration, okay, when SAS moves back, again your data step is hit, then your PDV has to reinitialize to missing. Why? Because it's reading from a non-SAS file. Your PDV has to be vacant to take in the new rows or new records. Hence, when it moves into the next iteration cycle, your PDV is vacant, and because it gets vacant, it initializes it again with missing. Missing means character will be representing as blank, numeric with period. Now it has to be free to take in the values. So with in file, it will locate your raw file where it is been located by this part. Now again, this is the previous record in input buffer. It has not changed when in file is located. This record is always loaded with new record when it hits input. This is the question which comes in your interview as well as your certification, that when this a record gets loaded into input buffer, it gets loaded into input buffer only when it hits input. See, when it hits input statement, a new record is loaded into your input buffer. Understood? Yes, no.
Yes, we get इनपुट स्टेटमेंट के बाद एग्जीक्यूट होगा वो.
इनपुट स्टेटमेंट जब वो रीड करता है तभी नया रिकॉर्ड इनपुट बफर में लोड होता है. प्रीवियस देखो, प्रीवियस वाला कौन सा है, यही था. जब तक ये इनपुट स्टेटमेंट रीड नहीं करता है तब तक वो न्यू रिकॉर्ड नहीं आता है. ऑल गुड?
Yes, yes.
Vaishnavi, Sharda. So now the new
Yes.
record is loaded in input buffer, and as per the instruction in input statement, the record is converted into SAS observations in PDB. So hence, again, from delimiter to delimiter, the values are loaded into PDB as SAS observations. Got it now? Again, when it encounters run का role है implicit output, implicit written, where the current content of PDB is immediately written to your SAS data set as a data portion. And again, the trigger has to be sent back to SAS that it has to process data step again. So this process of your data iterations or your data cycles will continue until end of file. So if your record has nearly 165 records in raw file, your data step will be processed 165 times. Understood now? Yes. So for each record, your data step will be read 165 times. Followed?
Yes.
Hence, you get this output. But when you see the result, you find the values are truncated. Why? Because the default length is 8 bytes. So SAS reads only till 8 characters. Then how you will adjust this? With the length statement. So what is the syntax for length? Variable, its type, and its length. If you have common variables to be provided with a common length, you can write the variable's name separated by space, giving their type and the length. So this length statement is recommended to be written always before input statement. So you provide the length telling first name should be of 12 characters. Of course, dollar indicates its character. Last, type, length, and so on. Okay, so that's what it's telling. Now, why always before input? Understand your compile. Imagine your compile phase. Just take few seconds to revise your compilation phase. Then you'll understand why we are providing it before input statement.
इनपुट स्टेटमेंट से पहले लेंथ स्टेटमेंट वर्क नहीं करेगा.
वर्क नहीं करेगा, नहीं, वो पहले ही आना चाहिए, ये वो बता रहा है. तो क्यों आना चाहिए? रिमेंबर योर कंपाइलेशन फेज, दैट्स व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू. कंपाइलेशन में क्या होता है? कॉलम का नाम डिसाइड होता है, टाइप डिसाइड होता है और लेंथ डिसाइड होता है. अगर मैं इनपुट स्टेटमेंट के बाद लेंथ देती हूँ तो ऑलरेडी उसका लेंथ फिक्स हो जाएगा ना, 8 बाइट्स. तो लेंथ का क्या यूज रहेगा? compilation phase.
Yes.
Okay. So going back here, अगर मैंने यहाँ पे ऑलरेडी मुझे यहाँ पे आउटपुट में क्या दिख रहा है, my data is getting truncated, correct? So when I execute this, data is truncated, fine. If I write my length out after input, okay, and I execute, still I find my data is truncated. Getting it? तो लेंथ का कुछ यूज हुआ है यहाँ पे, लेंथ स्टेटमेंट देके भी, तो मुझे क्या मैसेज आया है, वार्निंग आया है, रीड व्हाट इट्स ट्राइंग टू टेल.
Length was already set here.
What it is telling?
Use the length statement as the very first statement in the data step to declare. Okay.
तो क्या हो रहा है, अंडरस्टैंड योर कंपाइलेशन फेज. जैसे वो स्टेप्स रीड करता है, विथ इनफाइल इट विल क्रिएट द बफर, विथ इनपुट इट इज डिफाइनिंग योर पीडीवी. तो यहाँ ऑलरेडी नेम, टाइप, लेंथ डिसाइड हो रहा है, और उसके बाद आप लोग लेंथ दे रहे हो, तो पीडीवी में उसका लेंथ ऑलरेडी डिफाइंड हो रहा है 8 बाइट्स. तो ये इंस्ट्रक्शन से उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है. दैट्स व्हाट इट्स ट्राइंग टू टेल यू.
Right.
अंडरस्टूड?
So buffer is created after this infile statement.
बफर, हाँ,
Yeah.
फाइल से ही वो बफर बनाता है,
Buffer
और
create करता है.
पीडीवी यहाँ से बनाता है.
Yes.
करेक्ट?
Yes. तो
समझ
लेंथ,
में?
यस, अगर लेंथ देना है तो इनपुट से ही पहले देना पड़ेगा.
एब्सोल्युटली,
इनपुट के बाद दिया तो वो काम नहीं करेगा. यस,
एब्सोल्युटली,
बिकॉज वो पीडीवी क्रिएट हो चुका है.
एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. अंडरस्टूड
Yes,
वैष्णवी, शारदा?
yes. मैम वो जो ऑब्जेक्टिव क्वेश्चन था एक, जिसमें बी वाला ऑप्शन मुझे लग रहा था सही, तो वो बी भी करेक्ट लग रहा था.
I'll
इसलिए
explain you one thing. Now I'll copy this length and I put it before input. Either you can write it immediately before infile, वो भी चलता है. infile तो सिर्फ वो लोकेट करेगा आपका पाथ. इनपुट से पहले देने पर look at the output. Is your values now truncated? You get the values, correct? Yes, no?
yeah, values are truncated.
Okay, not truncated. Length दिया है ना हमने, आया ना, पूरा वैल्यूज आया है. हमने लेंथ में क्या दिया है, जॉब टाइटल का लेंथ $5, कंट्री दो का दिया है हमने लेंथ, जेंडर का 1 दिया है, फर्स्ट नेम का 12 स्पेस दिया है, 12 बाइट्स दिया है, और लास्ट नेम का 18 बाइट्स दिया है. सो अकॉर्डिंगली द आउटपुट इज कमिंग. गॉट इट? यस, ओके. तो आपका जो क्वेश्चन था रिलेटेड टू पोल, it's telling PDB
Yes.
at compile time holds variable name, type, byte size and initial value. Initial value compilation के वक्त होल्ड नहीं होता है, ये एग्जीक्यूशन फेज में होल्ड होता है. तो ये कंपाइल टाइम का वर्ड इट्स रॉन्ग. पीडीबी में वो इनिशियलाइज करता है क्या कंपाइल के वर्ड? नहीं, वो इनिशियलाइजेशन कब होता है? एट द टाइम ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन फेज. कंपाइलेशन में सिर्फ पीडीबी बनता है.
Yes.
अंडरस्टूड? Yes,
Yes.
all. Sure. So this is how we had seen the execution and the length. So what is the syntax? So it's telling put length statement before input statement, and hence see how it is doing. During compilation, when it hits length, for your columns, accordingly the columns are created and the length is defined during compilation. Got it? So attributes are based on length statement, and then when it hits your input, renaming columns gets added to a buffer and that attributes gets added. अब समझ में आया? See? तो इनपुट में ऑलरेडी अब ये फर्स्ट नेम लास्ट नेम के लेंथ नहीं ऐड करेगा क्योंकि लेंथ में वो स्टेटमेंट में आपने ऑलरेडी दिया था, इसलिए वो पीडीबी में बन गया है. तो कौन से कॉलम्स रह गए वो सिर्फ ऐड कर रहा है इन द पीडीबी. अंडरस्टूड? Look at your length and look at your input statement. Yes. ध्यान समझ में आया?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and thus you get the output. So the values are no more truncated. Got it? Now, if you see this PDB, the sequence of your columns is changed. Why? क्योंकि पहले लेंथ आया है तो आपको जिसकी लेंथ असाइन करनी थी वो कॉलम्स हो गए, and then remaining columns during compilation gets added. SAS reads in sequence as per input, the column sequence according the values are put in. Okay, and that is why you see the output, the columns have been coming. Fine. So the question here is, suppose you want to order of the variables to match the order of the fields, you can include the numeric variables in the length statement. Which of the following produce the correct results?
B.
Okay.
Yeah, B value specified.
Yes. Okay. Then the sequence of your PDB will be as per the sequence of input. तो यहाँ पे input में फिर वापस attributes देने की जरूरत नहीं है. This is just the sequence how to read the rows, and this will create the PDB with proper length and all. So this is what you'll see the output. और जब हम contents देखते हैं तो कंटेंट्स मोस्टली हमको क्या दिखता है कि अल्फाबेटिक लिस्ट ऑफ वेरिएबल्स, लेकिन हमको जैसे कॉलम्स के ऑर्डर है वैसे ही वेरिएबल्स की लिस्ट चाहिए होगी, तो प्रॉप कंटेंट्स में सिर्फ वार्नम लिखने का है. सो इट कम्स एज वेरिएबल्स इन क्रिएशन ऑर्डर. अंडरस्टूड? So what you do is just open this demo D02 and D03. First you do with D02 and then work with D03. Okay? Go ahead.
First we'll do 3 D03.
Two and
na?
then yeah, and then 3.
3. Hmm.
वो एक बार मुझे मैक्रो वाला स्टेटमेंट देखना था, वो वाला.
एक मिनट देख लो. ठीक है.
यस. यस अश्विनी, दोनों कोड्स में लेंथ पहले है।
एब्सोल्युटली।
यस
लेकिन सीक्वेंस ऑफ कॉलम्स भी अंडरस्टैंड करना। D02 में हमने सिर्फ लेंथ डिसाइन किया है, D03 में सीक्वेंस है, और इनपुट स्टेटमेंट में हमने वापस लेंथ नहीं डिफाइन की है, टाइप नहीं डिफाइन किया है इन D03, क्योंकि लेंथ में हमने सब दे दिया।
या D02 में सीक्वेंस नहीं है वेरिएबल्स में,
करेक्ट,
एंड बट
अंडरस्टूड। Vaishnavi, Sharda, I hope you are on the same page,
Yeah.
followed what we are learning.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And in D03, I hope you have followed what this Varnam is doing. If you remove Varnam, see the alphabetic list appears as alphabetically into your block contents. But if you use Varnam, see the sequence of columns and see the heading, variable in creation order. Understood? Done?
Yes, followed. Yeah.
Yes. So you get the output.
yes.
That's it. Any doubts, any questions up till now? Yes.
As of now, no.
Okay. So the next topic we'll cover it tomorrow. Okay. So for today, we'll stop at it. All good?
Yes, right.
Oh.
Yes,
All right. Chalo. So meet tomorrow at the same time. Okay.
yeah.
Fine. Thank you. Bye and take care. Enjoy your Saturday
Yeah,
afternoon. Bye.
Ashwini.
Yeah.
Are
Bye.
we doing good, Ashwini? I don't know. That's the
Yeah. So
okay.
it's just that you need to have a revision before coming to a class to recall what we have learned last week. Because it's a weekly batch now, so it
Yes.
tends to happens that whole week. Like I know you are a working people, so you may not get time, but if you a bit recap what we do, what we have
Yes.
learned, it will help you to understand what are we actually learning.
Okay.
Okay. So daily,
Yeah.
at least take some time and revise the topics. Not theoretically, practice is important.
Yeah, with examples are already written code. We are just like applying the path name
You need
and
to
let us see. Yeah.
understand the logic.
Yeah, we are understanding the logic. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the syntax and all, it will come only when you keep on revising, typing. Then only you will get the confidence on the syntax.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. All right. See you all tomorrow. Thank you very much for attending the class. Bye and take care.
Bye. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.